Welcome to the first edition of Lance and Larry Tracking the Pack. Let's go up north to Green Bay. Larry McCarren, he used to practice in training camp 2-a-days when the men were men, and they hit and they played with pads all the time in the 70s and 80s. Larry, do you miss those days, and are you ready for this training camp, the softer, kinder, gentler version?
A more enlightened training camp, Lance, I'll tell you what. The thing about training camp is no matter what you go through, it's always kind of difficult. It's much more reasonable now, but I look the way I do because of 12 seasons of training camp.
Well, you're still looking pretty good, Rock. I tell you what, the top story of this camp, or what should be the top focus for the Packers as they start this training camp 2013 style?
Well, Lance, the things I'm particularly looking at is, if you look at it, there's just a couple of three starting positions up for grabs. Offensively speaking, we're talking right tackle, Marshall Newhouse, Don Barclay. We'll see how that pans out. On the defensive side of the ball, the one safety spot, M.D. Jennings, Jerron McMillan. And I think you could also toss in Casey Hayward and somebody else, Sam Shields, Tremont Williams, because Casey Hayward last season certainly showed that he's capable of starting the NFL. So the first thing I'm looking at is how those starting positions that to some extent are up for grabs, how they turn out.
Larry, you're around the team more than anybody else. What type of tone this offseason going into training camp is Mike McCarthy trying to preach to the team?
Well, Lance, Mike doesn't seem to want to talk about it, but that question about the Packers being physical enough, tough enough, there was that talk going on this offseason, and while Mike may not want to talk about it, he's heard it, and I think he wants to establish some of that. I think that's one of the reasons the Packers are practicing very heavily in the mornings early on, because last training camp, that's when they got their best fundamental work done. But I think that's sticking in Mike's craw, and even though no football coach is going to say, hey, yeah, we got to toughen up a little bit, yeah, we got to get more physical, I think those things are in Mike McCarthy's mind as he approaches this camp.
Early on, Larry, a lot of the focus is going to be on the offense, whether it's the running backs or the offensive line shuffle. But kind of the tone I got was that 579, the number of yards given up to the Niners in that playoff game, that was kind of more the theme that was basically sticking in their craw. Do you think they will be better, and is that kind of something that the defensive coaches are going to use to motivate those guys?
Well, we'll see if they'll be better against those types of situations, but I will tell you this, generally speaking, Lance, you get what you really emphasize. And the first thing the defense did during OTAs is they lined up against the pistol, a la Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers, and those 579 yards, a lot of them came out of the pistol, came with the read option. The very first thing they did with OTAs is line up and start walking through their assignments, and they did that every practice of OTAs, so you know it's being drilled into the hearts and minds of the Packers defenders. We got to do a better job against this formation and that particular play.
Larry, you mentioned it earlier, right tackle is the only open competition on the offensive line. Does Marshall Newhouse have the inside track?
I think he has the inside track in the sense he started more games than Don Barclay, and he's got some tools. Now, Marshall Newhouse needs to improve his consistency, but he does have the hands and feet to play the game. However, Marshall will have to play it more consistently because Don Barclay, a good old-fashioned blue-collar worker, not overly gifted, but he will come to work with his work gloves on every day. So I think Marshall Newhouse, he lined up there as the starter the entire offseason during the OTAs. He's got the first crack at the job, but if he falters, they're going to look at other people, and you might even throw in David Bakhtiari, one of their draft picks. I don't have a real good handle on him yet, but he's got some ability. It's clear he's been coached in the college game.
Final thing, Larry, a lot of people pulling for Johnny Jolly. He would be a feel-good story, but does he have much of a chance to make this team? I
think, Lance, Johnny's kind of a wild card. During the OTAs that he participated in, I really couldn't get a handle because it's not in pads and they're not really going all out in that regard. I really couldn't get a handle if Jolly still has that burst. He's still a big man, he's still a powerful man, but the thing that separates everybody really is that quick first step, that explosiveness. If he's got that, the Packers just pick up another high draft choice in the defensive line. If he doesn't have that, he probably can't play.
Larry, it's early in camp, but you've already done your homework, buddy, so you're already mid-season form. I can't wait to do another Lance and Larry tracking the Pack. Are you ready next time around?
Yeah, Lance, but I have no life. I'm kind of a loser, so I kind of look at that stuff every day.
Hey, but you're a likable loser. All right, thanks, Larry, for the time. You're watching Lance and Larry. Yes,
see you next time.
Pack. We'll see you next time.